Scotty, you've got to get me some maneuvering power. I can't repair warp drive without a space dog. Then get me impulse power, half speed, quarter speed, anything. If we can get this Hulk moving, maybe we can do something.
Battle stations. Battle stations. Man is spotted, bearing 335, hot. Hello, Commanders. This is Kazzik with today's video. We're going to be discussing the power, control, and distribution systems for Carrier Command 2. Initially, the first thing you do is press the main circuit breaker to power everything up, and unless it is a PvP match with an agreed upon start time, go ahead and deploy the carrier. The primary circuit breaker panel is located to the left of the Helms and is within reach of the helmsman while that person is on station. So this is a good secondary job for the helmsman to be able to do while steering actively on the station. In addition, there are both anti-air missile launchers and 3 out of the 4 Sea-Wiz defense systems are within reach. So consider having your helmsman man those all the time. Now, as far as individual systems go, of course you have the main breaker, which you turn on and never touch again. Then you have weapons and repairs, propulsion, radar, and lift crane systems are along the bottom. You do not touch the lift crane and propulsion systems. You can occasionally consider turning off repairs, as it will remember the setting that you currently have. If you're repairing the hull or a subsystem and you need a power burst of speed because you're getting insufficient power, you can turn off repairs, and once you've gotten past that need of speed, you can turn it back on and it will resume whatever it is you were repairing. So there is a good reason to consider using the repair breaker as opposed to turning it off directly on the repair screen. Now, typically, you will be cycling the weapons and radar breakers frequently throughout a match. The individual weapons breakers will, of course, be cycled as needed throughout a match, and depending on whatever situation has arisen. But the main breaker is useful for, again, quick burst of speed or other situation where you need the lift and crane to get a cap manta up into the air as quickly as possible. The radar breaker could be off for stealth reasons because it does give the red exclamation point on an operator screen on anything of an enemy's within 10 kilometers of anything using radar. It could also be off for just power consumption need. The screen to the left of the primary circuit breaker panel indicates visually the requested power with the 2 dashes on the side of the bars, and then, of course, how much is being filled for each of the power systems. Currently, everything is being filled, so the bars are full and green. If they are less than full and yellow, that means some systems, or all the systems, are getting less than what they're required. So they are going to be operating at less efficiency for most things. Radar is unaffected by less than full power. The weapon systems appear to be unaffected. I have tested the response time of the 160 gun. It is unaffected based on the power demand being applied to the systems. The other 3, repair, propulsion, and the lift crane systems, they are proportionally slowed based on how much you're missing. If you're requesting a certain amount of power and you've got a bar that's roughly half full of that power, for propulsion you'll be going half as fast as you would be if that bar was full. Repairs are twice as long for the same amount of repair, and of course the lift and crane are slower one coming up and down. So managing the power is very important to get the most efficiency out of your carrier. Considering that you have a maximum of 100% of power, propulsion systems can use up to 80%, and that is very easy to accomplish with full throttle, or even just full steering with no throttle will be 80% power requirement. That is, of course, the maximum it's going to ask for as well. Now you'll notice, because I have the weapon systems and radar on, that I am not filling all of these up. So to get a little bit more speed, you'll even hear the engines increase in speed, turn off something, depending on what your needs are at that moment in time. Now the individual weapon systems are 6% each, with 2 exceptions, and that would be torpedoes and countermeasures, which are 3% each, or as I like to think of it, as 6% for the pair. Now with all 11 weapon system breakers on, and considering 2 of those are half strength, that's 60% requested from the entire weapon system, and that's a lot. So you're going to want to manage your weapon systems a lot more precisely than that. I would never have both anti-air missile launchers on. I typically don't have all 4 CWIS defense systems on, unless it's a panic situation where you're going to die otherwise. Never have the countermeasures on unless you're firing it. If you're firing one, turn it on, launch your countermeasure, turn it off. That's the extent of the power you need to launch one. For flares, same basic concept. Launch a flare. It does take 8 to 10 seconds to actually launch a flare, but once it launches, go ahead and turn that breaker off to get more power. And as a side note, these systems, to include the countermeasures, the flares, the cruise missiles, and the main gun and CWIS, none of those systems require power to rearm. So do not think you need to have power on those to rearm. There is an exception, that's torpedoes. You cannot initiate a reload while the breaker is off of either noisemakers or torpedoes. But if you have power, initiate a couple of things and turn power off. While they appear yellow, they're actually reloaded, and when the moment you turn it back on, they are full and ready to go. Something that I don't think even advanced players realize is that when something is destroyed and completely off the table, smoking hulk on your deck, like a CWIS or weapon systems, torpedo launchers, etc., you'll get a blinking red light here indicating that it's damaged and can't be used. If the power switch is still activated, you're losing that power anyway. So anything that is blinking red, turn off. There is zero reason to leave it on until it gets repaired. Once it gets repaired, then it's back in play. And as a side note, that it requires 100% repair to get back in play. The maximum power draw for each system is different, of course, but they have distinct limits and requirements. Subsystem repairs, anything not the hull, is only 5% at a time. So that is pretty minor, and you can definitely have that on while underway. Even if you're trying to get full speed, that's fairly easy. You could just turn off, one extra weapons breaker and you're there. Propulsion is the big hog at 80%, and it's often eating 80%. Weapons is where you manage your power the most with whatever configuration you're running, trying to get that down so that propulsion's full speed. As needed, of course, if you need to fire weapons or defensive systems active, turn them on. And the lift crane, it is 20% apiece, and they can be running individually so that you can have 0, 20, or 40% required power, and those you have very little control over once it's been requested for a Manta or Razorbill or whatever to launch, or if one has just landed, those systems will get used to either launch or recover the aircraft in question. The radar is 20% flat, 20%. I strongly recommend using radar as a good throttle adjustment. One thing you may note is the propulsion system is using a little bit of power, and it sort of fluctuates on how much it's using. That's actually because I have the maintain heading selector switch activated, and as the carrier is in the waves and the current and the wind will get pushed around a little bit, and it's trying to maintain a specific heading, that will use a little bit of power to maintain that. Typically, if you're not going a full bore throttle, it doesn't matter. With time and practice, you will get very proficient at managing your power. It is quite important in this game to be able to efficiently activate and deactivate as required to get the most out of your carrier and still engage the enemy effectively. It will come with time and practice. Just keep these in the back of your mind as you are running things in between islands especially. I'd like to thank you for your attention and hope you learned something new today.